The Adley humans, as it happened, it was the sea Kamsu who encountered humans first, and being the cuckoo, they immediately attacked. This was unwise. Our galaxy is a big place and has only a handful of sentient species capable of interstellar flight, yes, foremost of whom are we, the Amia. As it turned out, unknown to anyone else, the humans had quietly been building a small domain for themselves in one remote and largely unremarkable corner of the galaxy. Nothing major, just a few dozen colonies in the systems closest to their home star. But the important thing is, they had no idea that the Kook Kamsu existed or any other sentient species for that matter. One would think therefore that in a first encounter between a species as aggressive, well, aggressive is the wrong word, say uncompromising, as the Kook Kamsu and humans, a relatively primitive race who moreover had no idea that the Kamsu existed and certainly had no experience in dealing with them, that the humans would come off worse. This was not the case. Why? I'm explaining why, impatient fledgling. Now pay attention, because here is the history lesson, and a valuable lesson it is. AC Kamsu AR team found a small human settlement on a world that had been marked for economic exploitation by their coordinator, which passes for their government. The settlement had not been there long, a few years, a decade at most, put up after the initial survey was conducted. As I said, the Kook Kamsu are uncompromising. Finding buildings where there were supposed to be none, they immediately set about burning them to the ground. It's entirely possible that they didn't realize that the structures were made and inhabited by sentient beings. Semi-telepathic species are often like that. In the case of the cuckoo, thoughts can be transmitted by pheromones. Not good with theory of mind, since they already know the thoughts of other members of their species and therefore have no need to extrapolate. Thus, they aren't very good at recognizing sentience in alien species. I digress. I was saying that they burnt the human settlement to the ground. Well, they tried to at least, but they didn't get very far. Fortunately for scholars everywhere, AC Kamsu AR team has helmet-mounted recording equipment backed up to their ship's black box in real time. That, combined with the human accounts, gives us a fairly reliable account of what happened. The AR team leader went up to the first building and, ignoring the unidentified creatures, humans running away from it, began to torch it with his arm-mounted flamer, making short work of it. The next building was slightly larger, 2 stories instead of 1, but the K-Kamsu are big, they're 5 meters long, though their bodies are only 1 wide at most and normally hold themselves a little under 2 meters off the ground. If they rear up on their 4 hind legs, they have 6 limbs, the front 2 pairs being used as legs or arms depending on the situation. They're even taller. The AR team leader shot a burst of flame into the ground floor, then reared up and shot a burst of flame in through the second floor window for good measure. He let off a few bursts with a multi-purpose laser mounted on his other forelimb. So this avatar of destruction, along with his 19 other team members, is tearing through the human settlement, so far largely oblivious to the actual humans. However, he then spots a vehicle leaving the settlement and cripples it with a laser shot. Going up to finish it off with his flamer, he finds 4 humans, a male, a female, and 2 juveniles, a typical human family if you're interested in the exobiology of it, cowering in the wreckage. His records show that he definitely pauses here. Perhaps being a team leader, he was slightly less obtuse than most K-Kamsu. Only for a moment, though. Then he raises his flamer to continue with the sterilization. It's at this point that he realizes that he no longer has a flamer, or the arm it was attached to for that matter. He lets out a great keening screech as he realizes he's been injured and backs away from the wrecked vehicle. There, standing between him and the human family, and next to his severed arm, is another human. A human in a fully encasing armored suit who had managed to creep up underneath him and remove his limb before he even noticed the human was there. A human holding a large kinetic pistol and a sword, an actual sword. The K-Kamsu commander stares in astonishment for a moment. He's going into shock, but he still has a few minutes before he becomes catatonic. Then he realizes that he still has his combined laser mounted on his other arm. He brings it up, points it at the human, and fires. And the human simply steps aside. The human didn't actually dodge the laser blast, but he was so quick that in the time it took the AR commander to bring the weapon to bear, aim, and pull the trigger, he was able to assess where the blast would land and simply move aside. That is how fast human reaction times are. The AR commander keeps firing, of course, but it doesn't do him any good. The last footage the helmet cam records is of a blur of movement passing beneath the unfortunate commander before, well, he was the first casualty in the human-sea Kamsu conflict. So, who was this mysterious human with a sword, and why was he there? Well, that is the amazing thing. He was there for exactly the same reason the Kook Kamsu AR team was. He was an armed scout who, along with 4 others, had gone to the planet to prepare the way for an invasion. Humanity is not a united polity, you see, and the faction that had sent the scouts was fighting in a formalized manner that they call war with a faction that had built the colony and intended to seize the planet from them. This was not an unusual state of affairs, by the way. The different human factions and the factions within factions were almost constantly fighting each other. But this is the important part. While the Kook Kamsu were about as heavily armed as sea Kamsu get and still only really prepared for dangerous animals, the human scouts only had what humans consider the lightest weapons available and were still equipped enough to drive off the sea Kamsu. The scouts were mostly only suitable for stealth operations, hence the sword with a monomolecular electrostatically bonded edge. It could cut through just about anything in silence. It worked, too. The scout and his 4 partners cut through most of the Kook Kamsu before they even realized anything was wrong. I should add that their active camouflage armor helped, too. That was how the scout had gotten so close to the AR commander in the first place. In any case, the AR team was totally outclassed, and only 3 of the K Kamsu made it back to their ship out of a team of 20. They could probably have bombarded the colony from orbit, but they were in such shock and barely capable of running their ship with so few of them, that they scurried back to their home space as fast as their ship could take them. Are you confused yet? I certainly was when I first studied this. Interspecies violence is not completely unheard of course. Mating rituals in particular often involve some degree of physical conflict. But still, it more often takes the form of aggressive displays with no injuries. The fact that humans routinely kill each other is shocking, but mass-organized violence? Certainly no other species has anything like human wars. Most conflicts within species that are not dealt with diplomatically, a negotiation is usually the favored less costly strategy, are, like mating, resolved with displays of power. After all, why risk actual injury when it is easier to assess in advance who is the stronger? Perhaps it could be down to the fact that humans are a carnivorous hunter species. That is very unusual. Complex societies usually evolve from herd species, or flock in our case, which generally means that they were nearer the bottom end of the food chain when they evolved and are probably herbivores. This holds true for most sentient species in the galaxy. We Amia subsist mainly on rich fruits found in the high canopy where our flocks were hunted by Gia hawks in the infancy of our race. The K Kamsu built hives of wood pulp on their homeworld and were hunted by mazo snakes when they left these to gather fungus from under tree bark. Each species has an ancestral predator which haunts their racial memory. Don't think I don't know that you sometimes take cut-out plastic wings and scare people by making hawk shadows. It's not funny yet. Although there are things on Earth, the human homeworld, that will eat humans, yes, I shudder to think of what could pose a threat to an adult human male. That is not what really frightens them. Watch some of their media sometime. I guarantee you that although you will see the occasional alien or monster, the vast majority of violence portrayed will be inflicted by other humans. For humans, the main threat to their survival, excluding diseases, which is another horror story in its own right, has always been other humans. This is what makes them so dangerous. Ignore the fact that they are carnivores. Put aside for a moment that they evolved both to hunt other animals and survive predation by things even more vicious than them. They are the only sentient species in the known galaxy that evolved to cope with predation by other sentients. When you or I feel threatened, our instinctive reaction is to find a leaf to hide under, and that's all it is. An instinct left over from when our ancestors were hunted. Sure, in situations where it's important to override these instincts, we can. But it's still there. When humans feel threatened, their reaction is to kill the threat. They kill sentient beings as easily as we kill insects. The idea of intentionally killing another sentient, even in the direst of situations, is the worst horror we could imagine. For humans, it's simply business as usual. So, fledgling, this is what you must remember. Human history is a story of constant conflict, of millions of years of tribal warfare resulting in the deaths of billions. As a result, they are a species with a dangerous combination of aggression, adaptability, and advanced technology. Knowing all this, would you want to anger them? Certainly, I wouldn't, and it would be wise for the other species in the galaxy to follow this example. But I would never dare to attempt it. Would you?